Alright students, today we're going to find out how to fill out a portfolio data sheet for your stock market project. Now you've already decided to invest in 3 different companies. We're going to follow those 3 companies and additional companies if you choose throughout the next 3 to 4 months in class here. So in order to figure out just how many shares you own in each company, I'm going to go through this data sheet with you and explain where you can find all the information that you're going to need for this project. So I'm going to stay local. I chose 3M as my company here, and this company I decided to invest $20,000 in out of the $60,000 that I was awarded. So it's really simple. Start off, put your stock name in here. You might have Medtronic or Best Buy or Target or something more original than that, and then you just put your stock symbol right there. Now this box right here asks for the price per share at the purchase date. We're going to use October 4th as our purchase date. Now I know I got a lot of numbers in here already, but just bear with me. I'll show you where those numbers came from and how you can go about calculating whether or not you're making money or losing money. So we're going to use each Friday starting on October 4th. October 4th is our purchasing date. So in order to find the closing price on October 4th, which is the number here and the number that you also see right here, we have to use Yahoo Finance. You should be very accustomed to this at this time. You just go to the summary page, and from here you can see all the information, 3M and how they're doing today. You want to click on historical prices, and historical prices will bring you to the chart that you're going to need. Now because our start date is listed January 2nd, 1970, that's not going to do us much good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that date to our purchasing date, which was October 4th, not 1970, but 2013. And you can just go ahead and leave the end date as is, because that's usually just today's date, and I'll keep it on a daily basis. And when you click Get Prices, you're going to get all that information that you need for your stock chart, or for your data sheet rather. So here we are, October 4th, right down here. On that date it closed, and always use the far right hand side. It closed for $119.40. So that's the number that I go back and I put right here, and you can go ahead and put it right there for the time being. Alright, and since we're updating it for every Friday or on a weekly basis, I went ahead and I just put in these numbers right here. I'll explain why this is in red here in a little bit as well. So October 4th, $119.40 per share. Got it here as well as here. Now we have to figure out how many shares that equates to. I've already told you that I invested $20,000 in that, so I'm just going to pull out my calculator here, clear out whatever I was doing. And I would just take 20,000 and I divide it by 119.40, and I'll show you how that looks. So 20,000, and I divide that by the 119.40, and that's going to give me that number. Now you can't own half of a share, you can't own 0.3% of a share, so just whatever is before the decimal point here is how many shares you own. So in my case it's going to be 167. That's the number that I'm going to put right there. Alright, moving on, the total value of my stock at that purchase date, October 4th, should be very close to your investment, minus 20,000. The reason why it's a little less is because we're not including this 0.504 whatever. So in order to find out what you have here for your particular company, you're just going to take the number of shares you own, and in my case it's 167. Take 167 and I'm going to multiply that by the purchase date, or the price, the closing price on that purchasing date, 119.4, and that's going to give me $19,939.80. Now I can't compare this number or this number to anything that happened a week prior, so therefore I'm just going to put NA here, and I'm also going to put NA right there. You're also going to make sure you include your total value of the stock on that purchase date right up here, and that just corresponds to the same number that you've got right there. Now we're fast forwarding a week, going up to October 11th. That is also a Friday. On that date it closed at 120.72. To find out where that is, you just go back to historical prices, put in your information, go to October 11th, you follow the line straight across, and there you go, you got 120.72 right there. That's what I went ahead and I put right there. Now this is relatively easy from this point. This time we can do a weekly change. It went from 119 to 120.72, so what I did is I just took the difference between the two, and because it increased from 119 to 120, I made sure that I put a positive mark right there. So I've got a positive $1.32 that it increased in 1 week. Now to find my current value, I do the same thing that I did above. You're always going to take 167, or whatever number of shares you own in that company. In my case, it's 167, and I'm going to multiply that by the closing price. So this number right here, the number of shares you own, is extremely important because this will dictate what your current value is going to be from a week-to-week basis. So I take 167 and I multiply it by 120.72. I'm going to get this number right here, $20,160.24. Now, to find my total profit or loss at this point, I need to take the difference between the number that I just calculated and the number that I started with. So I'm always taking the difference between this number and what I started with. And because, again, we've increased, we went up $220.44. So if I sold at the end of the day on October 11th, I would have made $220.44 on 3M. But I'm not going to trade just yet or sell just yet. I'm going to move on. We did the same thing for October 18th, 122.84. You go over here, your 122.84 is in your adjusting closing column over here. Shifted it over, pretty easy. It went up $2.12. Notice that this is a weekly change. So I'm taking the difference between this number here and the number in the prior week. This number and this number, the difference between the two will get you right here. Now from there, do the same thing. Take your 122, multiply it by how many shares you own. Now I've got 20,514. That's fairly easy to find. And then to figure out what my total profit or loss at this point is to take this number that you just calculated and the difference with this number right here. I'll find that if I sold on October 18th, I would have made $574 and some change. Now, my stock, fortunately or unfortunately, decided to continue up even on the 25th. It went up to 124.42, but I'm going to say it went down to 118. Just a second, my kid needs me. Sorry about that. I'm back. So again, I think I remember leaving off right here on the 25th. I made up this number saying that it went down even though it did go up, just to show you what would happen in case your stock does depreciate. From here, it's, again, relatively simple. We want to find the weekly change, so what we do is we take the difference between the number here and the previous week. So it went from 122.84 down to 118. That equates to a negative $4.84. That's my weekly change. The current value, again, same thing. 167, number of shares you own, multiplied by 118 gives you the current value. That's 19,706. Now here's where things change a little bit, so listen closely. This 19,706, you take this number and the difference between what you started with. Right? So you could either take this number or that number. It's the same thing. So I basically have a difference of negative $233.80. So if I sold on that day, I would have lost $233.80. So hopefully this is something that is helpful to you. If you look at the bottom one last time here, these dividends, you'll come across these things from time to time. I don't have any on my sheet over here at the time, but sometimes it'll say right across here that you got a dividend for 0.25, which means that you were paid out 25 cents for each share you own. So you just put the date down, put the amount of the dividend, 0.25, and multiply it by how many shares you own, 167, and then you put the profit in there, and then we'll worry about that later when we sell our stocks. If you ever come across a stock split, that'll show up here as well. You'll see it clear as day. You'll probably be very confused. At that time, just talk to me, Ms. Nelson, or Mr. Miller, and we'll help you out from there. So if you have any other questions, talk to us. We'll be around.